I am Ray, and the heart will always betray the mind, and the mind will always betray the heart. Here is how to get them to make love. That does not look any better. You know, they used to call me Picasso back in college. Here's how to make peace. Before we begin, let us share a story, an origin story of the universe. In the beginning, there was God, and there was only God. But God was all alone. He had no friends to play with. So what did God do? God said, I've got an idea. Let me make some friends. So he split himself in two, and he created a wife for himself. And because these two were actually one, they were naturally attracted to each other. So you had God as Father, and you had God as Mother. And they loved each other very much. And in their love they came together and made a baby God. And that baby God became the universe. And so you see, the one fell into two, and the two created a three. And on into infinity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Infinity. In other words, we originated from unity into separation. And because we are all one, existence itself, its fundamental drive, is to return to unity, to return to perfection, to return to wholeness. And so you might say that we, as floating little souls, here you are floating through the ether, we incarnate into these bodies and go through karmic lessons in this life. And this life is the vehicle that we use to return to wholeness. Because we enter into this life with imbalance, we fall into separation. And there is a fundamental drive that we often aren't aware of to return to wholeness. Now, life with a capital L is the process of two forces: order and chaos, creation and destruction, masculinity, femininity, giving and receiving. In the universe, this manifests as stars and black holes. Black holes infinitely receive, stars infinitely give. And when these two forces are properly balanced, the system can sustain itself, life. But when these two forces are imbalanced, it creates death with a capital D. So we have on this end the death force, and on this end the life force. And both the death force and the life force create life. But when the death force or the life force are imbalanced, it creates death. And the imbalances that we have that are a result of both nature and nurture are biological conditioning and the conditioning we receive from the outer environment. These imbalances manifest in the form of problems, of struggle, of suffering. Because wholeness equals perfection and is necessary for life itself. So long as we are not whole within ourselves, this creates imbalances which aligns us with death. And death is the manifestation of problems, struggle. And so our true purpose in this life is to strive for perfection, to strive toward wholeness, psychic harmony. And so long as we are not in psychic harmony, the same problems, the same patterns will continue to repeat themselves over and over and over again. And the suffering that we experience wakes us up. The root of all enlightenment is suffering, because suffering causes us to be more aware. Your purpose is you, meaning it is precisely your problems, your struggles, your suffering that you go through in this life that are the way to enlightenment, that are the way to God, to wholeness. And so embark on a journey of self-discovery and be aware where your energy is imbalanced. Because in our life, through our conditioning and our trauma and our nature, we will be attached to one of two energies, and you will know which side you fall on. I like to say that we are all instruments of God, and our life is the song. But whether or not our song, our life, is in harmony is determined by whether or not we are in tune. So, are your strings too tight, or are your strings too loose? If your strings are too loose, it means that you are attached to chaos energy. If your strings are too tight, you are attached to order. And all the problems that you will experience in your life will arise because of this imbalance. In other words, if you're too tight, you're one step too fast, off beat with the flow of life. And if you're too loose, you're one step behind, off beat with the flow of life. And life is a dance. So dance. Learn how to dance. Because the perfect dance, the perfect flow, arises only when these two forces are balanced within us. Heart and mind. You could say the masculine element and the feminine element. And simply by integrating the opposite energy, many of your problems in life will go away. Because all problems are a result of imbalance. Because balance is harmony. Without harmony, there are problems. Here are some telltale signs. Telltale signs. Here are some signs in which you will tell which side you fall on. Orderly people are too fast. Chaotic people are too slow. Orderly people take too much action. Chaotic people don't take enough action. Orderly people are organized. Chaotic people are unorganized. Orderly people need structure. Chaotic people work best without structure. Orderly people have a lot of energy. Chaotic people tend to have less energy. Orderly people are prone to anxiety. Chaotic people are prone to depression. Now we all have both forces within us, but one will be dominant. And lastly, we'll just do orderly people are more masculine and chaotic people are more feminine. And it doesn't matter whether or not you were born a male or female. And it's not wrong for a woman to have dominant and masculine qualities. And it is not wrong for a man to have dominant feminine qualities. I, by nature, am a more feminine man. But I recognized long ago that all the problems that I was experiencing in life was a result of an over-attachment to this kind of energy. And by integrating the opposite energy, I could return to wholeness and harmony, and the problems could fade away. And because I know that this is my dominant and most natural state, that whenever I face a problem, or whenever I question what I need to do, oftentimes I can intuitively know whether or not I'm being too attached to chaotic energy, or whether or not I need more orderly energy. In other words, you can kind of feel how off you are with the flow of life. One interesting thing I heard the other day, if you're a fan of angel numbers, I don't know how true this is, but I like the idea. And that is, well, if you see 3, 3, 3, 2, maybe it's because you're being a little too slow. And if you see 3, 3, 3, 4, 3, 3, 3, 4, one too many threes, then maybe it's a sign to slow down. The thing about angel numbers is that it's more about what you believe than what is actually true. In other words, if you begin thinking, anytime I am shown a 332, then that is a sign of me to step it up a bit. And every time I see a 334, it's a time for me to slow down. Then the universe knows, oh, that's what they want to know. This is another way in which I can communicate with that person. And so here are the qualities of heart and mind. Heart is pure selflessness, like the sun. The mind is pure selfishness, like the black hole. Now, I don't want to confuse you, but it's going to happen, because there's an information gap that maybe one of you will catch. Well, I'm going to explain it now, so it doesn't matter, but just a quick detour. Don't leave, please. Inner reality and outer reality. We exist between these two polar opposite realities. And because these are polar opposite realities, all the things that are true in the outer reality, they are opposite in the inner reality. I just recognized this, and I knew this was going to be a problem. Well, because the mind is the masculine element, while the heart is the feminine element. But in the universe, in the outer world, selfishness, or the receiving aspect, is the feminine element, and selflessness is the masculine. Let us clarify this, because it's annoying. For instance, the unchanging and the changing, life and death. So in the inner world, the force of life is the unchanging, because consciousness, that is the source of life, its very nature is eternal, and therefore it is unchanging. But in the outer reality, the unchanging is death. For instance, when you see a dead body, it's just sitting there, it's not doing anything. And so too, in the inner world, changing is aligned with death. But in the outer world, changing is aligned with life. Or you could say movement and stillness. On the outer reality, stillness is death, like a dead body. But in the inner reality, for instance, stillness of mind, that aligns you with life. And so too, in the inner reality, movement is aligned with death. If you're always caught in your mind storms, your thoughts, it's going to align you with the force of death. But in the outer reality, movement is a sign of life. I needed to make this point because there is a paradox and a contradiction in what I am teaching to keep into consideration. Because the mind is the masculine element and the heart is the feminine element. But at the same time, paradoxically, the receiving energy is feminine and the giving energy is masculine. The paradox is that two things that seem to be opposite are equally true from different perspectives. I hope that makes sense. But spirituality is all about paradox. And so if you cannot handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. What else we got? I want to make a point that oftentimes we think selfishness is bad and selflessness is good, but that is just our own judgments. These are just neutral energies, and the balance of these two energies is what is good, and the imbalance of what these two energies are what can be negative. Love, wisdom, feeling and thinking. You see, in psychology, if you've ever heard of the Myers-Briggs types, there are feeling types and there are thinking types. Human beings whose natural tendency is to be dominant in thinking or in feeling, and these are two opposites. So if you're a dominant in thinking type, your feeling function will be in your unconscious, outside of your awareness, meaning you will be weak in feeling. And if you are dominant in a feeling type, your thinking function will be in your unconscious, and it will be your inferior function. In other words, until we integrate the opposite function, it will create imbalance in our life and create problems. The name of the game is using your strengths to develop your weaknesses. But in order to know your strengths and weaknesses, you must know thyself, my friend. So get clear on which side you fall on, because it will make it very easy to understand what you need to do moving forward. And if you are not even clear at all, you may simply know that by integrating the opposite energy, you will naturally return to a state of harmony and balance. And you see, because everything is energy, and we have the natural fundamental urge to return to wholeness, we will attract people of the opposite energy. A feeling type will naturally be attracted to a thinking type, and at the same time, they will both drive each other crazy. Because the thinking type can't handle their own feelings, and the feeling type can't handle their own thinking. And so it will be a source of great frustration for both parties. But if you can be wise, you can understand that the obstacle is the way. If you take things so personally, this person did this thing to me, this person's being mean to me, then you just wallow in your own suffering and you don't learn, you don't grow. But if you can take a step back and not take things so personally, you can realize the message that this person is trying to give you, or the lesson that this person is trying to teach you. Because God, life, the universe, puts the exact person we need in our life to help guide us. It's not intentional, it's just the natural way of things. As I said, chaos and energy, they're opposites, and they naturally attract. So, of course, we like to anthropomorphize God and say, well, God is out there doing these things specifically. But in truth, it's just the natural way of things. If you are a feeling type, you give off feeling energy, and therefore attract the opposite. So it's always exactly right, because the universe, because life is perfectly balanced. But we experience ourselves in the particular, unique forms that we perceive ourselves to be separate from the whole. And so we naturally attract others like pieces in a puzzle that fit together with our piece. Now, that also means if you got a bunch of trauma, you'll attract the exact person you need that exposes that trauma and pokes at it. For instance, you have on this side the narcissist, and on this side the empath. They attract each other because they are both imbalanced. The empath gives, and doesn't know how to receive. The narcissist takes, and doesn't know how to give. And both are each other's teacher. But who can take a step back from their own personal stories, their own personal drama, and be able to see, oh, this person is not sent here to bully me and make my life hell. Every person is here to teach us a lesson. So be on the lookout. If you are a heart-based person, it would do you well to learn how to receive. Instead of going out and trying to fill the cups of others, allow others to fill your cup. You might feel shame or guilt in doing things for yourself, in being selfish. Why? Because you have an identity associated with the heart consciousness. And so because mind consciousness contradicts heart consciousness, you will feel in a way like you are betraying yourself. And that is why the shame and guilt and fear arises. Because something will tell you, I'm not doing the right thing, I'm not being a good person. But it is not the true self speaking, it is conditioning. The heart consciousness will say that selfishness is not good because it's over-attached to heart consciousness. But what is not good is being too imbalanced to one side or the other. One of the main problems you will experience on this side, one day, if you haven't experienced it already, you will have spent your life giving and giving and giving, serving others, and one day you will realize that there is nobody serving you. And this can cause you to get resentful and angry because you spent your time nourishing others, but now you do not feel nourished yourself. And so the risk that the heart consciousness person faces is that the world will take and take and take and then throw you away. The world will take advantage of you and be merciless. This is why bad things happen to good people. This is why the good die young. Because when you give all of yourself, you give all of your energy to the world, you have nothing left over for yourself. And because that is imbalance, one aligns themselves with the force of death and they die. Now that reality is a tragedy. And I would say that you probably don't want to experience that. Because the leader of heart consciousness is Christ. And most people are not ready to be crucified. Because what was the life of Jesus Christ? His own people betrayed him, chewed him up and spit him out. But I like to say a tragedy is just a comedy that has yet to be finished. Which is why in the end, Christ rose again. In his selfless service to the world, he was redeemed. Now, I have to make a point that it is simply our judgments that we simply judge things as right or wrong. But life is like a piece of music. Life is like a movie. Life is like a play. Whether or not the play is a tragedy or a comedy makes no difference. It makes a difference to you, the individual, because you have to go through all that pain and suffering. But in the grand scheme of things, every act is beautiful. So I'm not saying that Jesus Christ did something wrong by being completely imbalanced toward heart consciousness, but that I guarantee that Jesus knew what he was doing. And it wasn't about living a good life here on earth. It was about the magnificence of the story. That is why they call it the greatest story ever told. But again, I am sure you would prefer not to be a martyr. And so it would be good for the heart consciousness person to focus on themselves, to fill their own cup, to take care of their own selves. It would be good for the heart consciousness person to set boundaries. Because if you do not set strong and firm boundaries, people will take advantage. The mind-dominated person who is imbalanced toward feeling and heart, they will see this consciousness as weakness. And so they will justify to themselves that you deserve to be taken advantage of. And that is what happens to a lot of women. The men take advantage of the women and use them for their own selfish gain. But if you have strong boundaries, if you can stand on your own 2 feet and say, no, I will not tolerate this behavior. I will not allow people to take advantage of me. I will not allow negativity into my life. If you look at this as a prey animal and this as a predator, which it is, this is the natural balance. What do prey animals do? They give their life for others to eat. What do predators do? They eat the prey animals. They take. And so as a prey animal, one who lives from heart consciousness, they must learn to develop teeth. Because if you do not have teeth, well, guess what? The T-Rex is coming. You better be able to run fast. And so in my case, where I was the mind-dominated person, separated from heart consciousness, the thing that is required is that one must begin practicing giving, and not giving with expectations. Because the heart consciousness person gives without any expectations. That is what it means to be on the Christ path. You dedicate your life to selfless service with no expectations in return. No secret underlying desire for some kind of reward. You do it because that is your devotion to God. And so the mind person will return to wholeness by giving, by serving others, by practicing a bit of selflessness, not expecting anything in return. In a way, you could look at the heart consciousness or the prey animal as developing a shell, whereas the mind person, just soften up a bit. Not be so stuck in one's ways. Open up, because the mind will close you off. It will give your heart a hard exterior, and that'll cut you off from the source of love, and that will create much suffering for you. But if you can soften up, be a bit more vulnerable, get in touch with your emotions, be more kind, compassionate, be more loving, I think you get the idea. Now the curse that the mind-dominated person will experience if they do not figure this out is that they will find that, well, at the end of their life, they have nobody. Because all they did was take advantage of others, so nobody wanted to be around them. In other words, you end up alone, or you end up in jail. So what might be some daily practices that we can implement in our life? Heart consciousness person, learn to say the word no. The mind consciousness person, that's probably your favorite word, so learn how to say the word yes. Be more comfortable. Get familiar. Set some time each week or each day to be alone, to enjoy your own company, because you'll probably spend a lot of your time naturally serving others, being around other people. So it's good to be alone. And the mind person, probably the opposite. Now these are overgeneralizations. You can give compliments to others without expectations. You can volunteer. It's a bit of a lot to ask, but do something nice for somebody else for once. Heart consciousness, perhaps you should get clear on what you want. Because once you are clear on what you want in life, only then is it easy to set boundaries. Only then do you know what you do not want. Otherwise, it's kind of easy for you to people please and get caught in the natural tendency to just do what others want you to do. Do what you want to do. And in order to do what you want to do, you got to be clear. Another one, stop stretching yourself too thin. You might want to do a lot of things for other people, and you may accidentally overextend yourself. You only have so much energy, so much time. That is why we learn to say no. And we get clear about, wait, who really deserves our time and attention? Who really deserves our energy? You stand up for yourself and you say, no, I will not allow people to waste my time. I will not allow people to take advantage of me. Anybody who does not respect my time and energy, they get to go away. And you'll probably get a feeling when I talk about these things that, oh, it feels like it's a lot. It feels like it's a big step. You might almost have a little bit of anxiety and resistance to it. And that's how you know for sure which side you're on. If I tell you to give more and you feel anxiety, oh, can't do that. Well, you know you're here. And if I say, well, set boundaries and say no, and that causes anxiety, well, here you are. Let me give a few examples from Deep Think, as I said. And the hard thing about this topic is the paradox. Some general guidelines, and you'll be able to customize this for yourself. Maybe you can journal, reflect upon yourself, and see which areas of life, which tendencies you may need to develop. What are your weaknesses and what are your strengths? Generally speaking, for heart consciousness, it's good to set boundaries. It's good to be assertive. Maybe take leadership. Maybe make some decisions for yourself, rather than just doing what everybody else wants to do. Structure, that's more of a chaos thing. Independence, yes, important. Because the heart consciousness is like a support character. It's designed to serve others. So being able to stand on your own 2 feet and be the main character for once, it is a way of reaching psychic wholeness. And the mind, because of its selfish nature, it's good to be more nurturing, caring for others, being empathetic, not just thinking about one's own self, but thinking about others, having compassion for other people's suffering, for other people's struggles, working with others, because the mind is selfish. It likes to be alone. It likes to do its own thing. And so it will be naturally uncomfortable to collaborate. Of course, not always. You'll figure it out. The nature of the mind is being closed off. So it is good to be open. Creativity, flow, self-expression, and getting in touch with your emotions. Being able to sit with yourself, not resisting difficult feelings, but being able to accept yourself, because both of these energies are equally important. And the problems we face in life will arise because of imbalance toward one or the other. So think about it now. Think about perhaps just one problem, one pattern that has continued to repeat itself over and over again. And focus on just that one. And see if the cause is because you are too attached to one side or the other. I like to say if a problem just happens once, it's just something that happened. If a problem happens twice, well, maybe it's a coincidence. But if a problem happens 3 times or more, then I can guarantee that that pattern, that problem is coming from us and is a result of an imbalance. So begin your journey of self-discovery and reflect upon yourself. Know thyself, my friend, and you will be destined for greatness and healing and harmony and balance and a beautiful life. I am Ray. Visit my cool store. Much peace and many blessings, and remember,